in Jersey. Wow.
All right, let's jump in. So I guess I'm jumping in. Bruchim habayim. Welcome to everybody. It's just it's so wonderful, that we can do this. I was saying a couple minutes ago when we first got on, and learning how to do Zoom and all of this COVID forced this whole crazy type of interactions, and now we're able, right, as we start to get to some whatever this new normalcy is, do these kind of things. So it's really wonderful to just immediately be able to say, hey, we're not just gonna, we have to plan a trip, which we may get to eventually, but we can actually just go on Zoom and see each other and hear from each other and learn from each other. So wonderful to do that this morning and getting on this evening in Israel. I don't know many people on the call. I know many who are here. My name is Aaron Schombrun. I have the privilege of being the rabbi here at Congregation Torat in New Jersey, which we are located, for those who have a sense, right in the middle of New Jersey, right on the water, like mamash, right on the water. You can walk from the Beit Knesset to the water in about 15 minutes. So wonderful place to be. Wonderful people in the community, and really before we do anything, since she's in my left eye here, I want to thank Monica Weiss and the Israel Committee and President Andy Robbins for encouraging us to do this program, and it's been wonderful to get to know our partners at Beit Daniel and Zari and Josh and everybody. It's just been a really wonderful start, and we're just getting started. So that's my introduction. Well, I'll just say a word since I'm talking, and then I can be quiet more later. The idea was A, to get together to know each other, and B, to talk about, as you'll hear a little bit later, a sense of Yom HaAtzmaut, Yom HaZikaron, what those things, how those days are experienced in Israel. I think it was a number of years ago already that Rabbi Daniel Hartman referred to them, right, as the high holidays in Israel. He wrote a whole article about it. I'm sure he wasn't the only one. And how that's also felt in America, and what are the differences there, and what we can do to sort of get ourselves in the right frame of mind and create this connection first and foremost. So that's like 1 minute of introduction. I'm going to be quiet and let whoever's going to go next go next.
Hi, everyone. My name is Josh Sharf. I work here at Beit Daniel. I'm also a rabbinical student at Hebrew Union College here in Israel. And we're opening up with a song. Could someone give me a thumbs up that you can see the screen, that it's in front of me? Rabbi, is that visible for everyone?
It's visible. Nothing's come up yet, but it's blank, but it's visible.
What about now?
Now it's
yeah,
yep.
Yeah, we can see you.
Yes, still, yes?
Yeah.
Good?
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Okay. For those of you who know, I invite you to sing along from home. I invite you to mute your microphones, because singing together on Zoom can be complicated, but please sing along at home for those of you who know. I have no other land. I have no other country. אין לי ארץ אחרת, גם אם אדמתי בוערת, רק מילה בעברית חודרת, אל אורכי, אל נשמתי, בגוף כואב, בלב רעב, כאן הוא ביתי. לא אשתוק כי ארצי שינתה את פניה, לא אבצר להזכיר לבה, אשיר כאן באוזניה, שנפתח את עיניה. אין לי ארץ אחרת, גם אם אדמתי בוערת, רק מילה בעברית חודרת, אל אורכי, אל נשמתי, בגוף כואב, בלב רעב, כאן הוא ביתי. לא אשתוק כי ארצי שינתה את פניה, לא אבצר להזכיר לה, ואשיר כאן באוזניה, עד שתפתח את עיניה.
Thank you, Josh. We choose to open this gathering after, of course, the remarks and the introduction of Rabbi Aaron with this song that was sang in Israel after Prime Minister Rabin was assassinated. And many Israelis felt that the land, the people, the nature of the state of Israel is changing. And this gathering is about the ability to absorb change and duality. It's about our ability to live here and there, sometimes between lands in North America and in Israel, and to understand that life is changing and our Judaism is changing step by step in front of our eyes and our hearts. And my name is Meir Azari. I'm the rabbi of Beit Daniel, the Reform Synagogue of Tel Aviv. When I say synagogue, it's very different than an American-style synagogue. We have 5 synagogues under the umbrella of Daniel Center for Progressive Judaism. And my friend David Gilat is our chairperson. David, say hi to the guys here. And we're so proud with this gathering that started with Lester and Monica that visit us. And we said, well, let's do something together. Corona, not Corona, here we are. And I took the responsibility to talk about Yom HaAtzmaut. Why I did that? Because Yom HaAtzmaut is very close to me, very important to me. I lost my father in Yom HaAtzmaut. And I wrote a book about Yom HaAtzmaut. And I'll tell you why. I grew up in Haifa, in a very secular Sephardic Jewish family, very far from Reform, conservative Judaism that you know. Very secular Israelis, but very traditional Sephardic Jew. That was my family's lifestyle. Yom HaAtzmaut for us was a very special day. My father had a business that supplied loudspeakers and entertainment to the city of Haifa. And I waited all year around, as kids are waiting for Christmas or for Hanukkah presents, I waited for Yom HaAtzmaut, because in Yom HaAtzmaut, I had the privilege to be in the highest building in Haifa, in Rehov Herzl, the main street in Haifa. From that point, the city, which means my father and few artists, launched the music, and people dance, Israeli folk dance in the streets. I mean, thousands and thousands upon of thousands filled the street called Rehov Herzl, the name of the founder of the Zionist movement, Rehov Herzl, the main street in Haifa. And I was a small kid sitting there and from upstairs seeing the mass dancing. At a certain point, that was like almost every year, the guy that ran this ceremony by the name Efi Netzer, used to be a friend of my father, says, okay, now Meir, you are doing the business. So my turn was, Kulam mistovevim yemina, Kulam mistovevim smola, which means everybody to the left, everybody to the right. You know, think about a kid, 10 years old, 11 years, 9 years old, holding a microphone, says, now Kulam yemina, and thousands of people to yemina and thousands of people to smola. When I grew up, I helped my father. I ran from stage to stage there and did my work. The first year that I didn't work with my father was 1987, when my father was, when I was elected to be the head of the Reform movement in Israel. I was elected as a very young guy to that very special post. I was 20 years old. And I stayed in Jerusalem because I had to fulfill my obligation as the head of the Reform movement at a ceremony in Jerusalem. In that evening, my father died while he's working in the stage in Haifa. When I arrived to the hospital during early morning of the day of Yom HaAtzmaut itself, I had a guy that waited for me and says, oh, good that you came. That was the guy from Chevrat Kadisha, from the Burial Society. You know, one of the major differences between funeral in America and Israel, that in Israel, people try to bury the death very fast, the same day or day after, which is very, sometimes raise a lot of questions and problems and challenges. He was waiting. He says, well, I'm waiting for you a few hours. We'll do the funeral at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock. It was like 7 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning. I said, what? No, it's holiday. It's Yom HaAtzmaut. And the guy there from Chevrat Kadisha, from the Burial Society, did like, I still remember his hands like this. This is not a chag. This is not a holiday. And we started to debate each other if it's a holiday or not a holiday. He says, no way. For my father, for his family that came from the size of Etzel, the begging followers, the people that grew up in Israel and fought, and my family, we can't do that. We won't do that. So, of course, the funeral happened 2 days later. And I decided that will lead me to learn more about Yom HaAtzmaut. And I wrote a book was published like 25 years ago about Yom HaAtzmaut, the development of this day. And the idea is that, as Chaim Nachman Bialik wrote, holidays can teach us a lot. So I asked Josh, my friend, to give us the quotation of Chaim Nachman Bialik that tells us that through understanding, no, this is not the one, holidays. So Josh, can you help and read that? Holidays can teach us a lot about who we are, and the way that we celebrate holidays can teach us not just about ourselves, about our nation, about our community, about our desire, dreams. So Chaim Nachman Bialik, please, Josh, can you read that?
Holidays are like mountains which rise from the plain to the heights, and every mountain gives testimony to the changes and upheavals which took place beneath it in ancient times. The mountain often testifies to volcanic disturbances which occurred under a nation's land.
Well, so that leads us to the second quotation from a song that is sang until today and will be sang this week in Mount Herzl, in the ceremony that declared, well, this is Yom HaAtzmaut, another year passed. And the idea is the whole story of the Zionist movement. Yes, something happened under the nation land. The Zionist movement occurred, and we are changing ourselves. We're trying to move to the land, to our, the promised land, and we try to create a nation. We are not the old type of Jews from the diaspora. We are not waiting anymore. Those who would like to come and join us, please do that. And we are not waiting for God, a miracle. We will create the miracle by ourselves. That was the concept of Zionist movement. And when Ben Gurion decided, after the first Yom HaAtzmaut, to build the concept of what is a new holiday in Israel, he created the ceremony in Mountain Herzl that 12 people will light candles, and the candles will say to the world, well, we are here, as in the old days, in the temple. We used to light those candles and tell to the world that new holiday come, a new month came, and now we are telling you, the whole world, we are here, and we're here in order to stay, and we didn't wait for a miracle. No miracle occurred to us. We find the course by ourselves. We worked hard. We climbed on the mountain. We saw the tears, and we felt the tears, and we saw the blood because we fought and we worked, and we step by step create the vision into reality. We're not dreaming anymore. We're not praying anymore. We are here in order to stay. The first ceremony, of course, is in Mount Herzl. And every year, I think this is, although it's a very, old-style Soviet, I don't know how to call it, Soviet-style ceremony. The Israelis are still doing that in television. I think it's the most rated. It's like the Super Bowl American terms. And this is why Benjamin Netanyahu fought for the last few years in order to speak there. Although the Speaker of the Knesset is entitled to be the host in the ceremony, Prime Minister Netanyahu fought very hard in order to be there and to be the main speaker. The question is how you celebrate a new holiday. Can a Jew create a new holiday? That was the main question that I dealt with my work, with my book. The last holiday that we created was, of course, Hanukkah. That was not written on the Bible, and Jews created a holiday. Who holds the right to declare a holiday? And for what? Chanukkites, well, so many years. Can we do that now? Let's see the words of Yoel Teitelbaum. This is a guy that comes from your area. This is the Satmar rabbi, one of the Satmar rabbis, and see what he means, what he talks. Rabbi Yoel Teitelbaum, Josh. It's not this one. Oh, yeah. This is Rabbi Yoel Teitelbaum, Satmar. There are many people like him. This is just one quotation from dozens and dozens that I have in my book, that people says, who are you in order to declare a holiday? Well, you declare a state. This is a secular state. Who cares about a secular state? It's like America, it's England, France. We don't care about it. This is not our story. If you talk about Judaism, who are you to create a Jewish ceremony? Who are you to try to use Jewish symbols? And who needs a Jewish state? Who needs a Jewish state? Here is the words of Rabbi Yoel Teitelbaum. Josh, please, can you read that?
And on that bitter and rash day when a revolt was made against the kingdom of heaven to establish a government of Israel in the Holy Land without the Torah and any belief from which would spring heresy among Israel, and they, the Zionists, call that day Yom HaAtzmaut, and they revel in public, making a holiday on that day, the day of revolt against the kingdom of heaven. Is there anything more repulsive to the sanctity of God than this?
Well, it's quite clear what Rabbi Teitelbaum says to us. Ben-Gurion, the founder of the State of Israel, didn't know in the early days what to do. The first Yom HaAtzmaut, just a few months after the war ended, the community is wounded. People are trying to overcome the difficulties of the war. By the way, we lost around 10,000 soldiers in a community of 600,000 people. You understand what it means. The numbers are enormous. Numbers of wounded, the new immigrants, the new waves of immigrants just started to come to Israel. How you celebrate the new day, the Yom HaAtzmaut, the first one? So the decision of Ben-Gurion was very simple. Yom HaAtzmaut, as any other nation, especially in Europe, is celebrated by an army march. Let's do an army march. What can be better than that? So the army was gathered in Tel Aviv. Jerusalem was, as you remember, was divided, was too weak in order to hold a march. And the march was planned to be in Tel Aviv. The only problem is that the march never marched, because when the soldiers came to Tel Aviv, they were organized, and when the moment they start to march, dozens and dozens of people, and we're talking about a massive number of people, just ran into the wave of the soldiers and hug them and kiss them, people that knew each other, people that didn't know each other. And the step of energy and happiness. For the first time after 2,000 years, people that came from all over the world, Europe, those who grew up in Israel, suddenly see an Israeli Jewish army marching on the street. What can be better than that the mothers and the fathers are running to hug their children, not the children. The march couldn't march. So Ben-Gurion, after the first Yom HaAtzmaut, decided to put what we all do as Jews, a group that we called, rabbis, we call it in America, Va'ada, committee. We are very good in committees in the Jewish world. And the committee sat and debate and came with an idea that Ben-Gurion tried to build step by step. First, the ceremony in Har Herzl to declare, well, another year passed. Second, let's do something very special, said Ben-Gurion. Be holding the vision of the committee. Let's move the holiday from the street. We won't be able to celebrate in the street. Let's move the holiday to the home, to the houses of our community. And the committee did that a very interesting way. They look upon the Jewish holidays, and they saw that Passover is the most rated holiday. I mean, the best rating, more than high holidays, more than Sukkot, more than any other holiday. Jews are sitting around the table. So let's do something very similar to Passover. what we are doing in Passover. In Passover, first we are eating, so let's eat. But we can't eat matzah and we can't eat the food of Passover, so let's create some kind of a plate that symbolize Yom Ha'atzmaut. Let's do some kind of a ceremony that recognize the state of Israel. So let's create a Gadah. Ben-Gurion, by his power as the prime minister and then defense minister, called for reserve duty the leading Israeli writers and poets and put them together here in Tel Aviv, not far from Beit Daniel, and tell them, guys, you have a few weeks to create a Gadah. Passover Agadah is past. We are creating a new Agadah. Tell us the story of the creation of the state of Israel. Tell us the story of the years that we pray and how we get out from Egypt in the modern era, between the Holocaust and the war that we just ended. And the writers created Haggadah. Guys, I'm holding here just a booklet of the Haggadah, Xerox of the Haggadah. The Haggadah was created, and it's a great story. There's no God there. There's the state of Israel, the army, Chel Hayam, the navy, the air force. Avadim Hayinu, not just in Egypt, Avadim Hayinu in Europe, in the Arab countries. And of course, the Holocaust is there, and the riots and the pogroms. And we have here the Arabs, not the Egyptian, and we have all the story of the people of Israel from the exile until the modern era. The Agadah was planned to be part of a supplement of a newspaper 2 days before the holiday. And days before that, the State of Israel published in the newspapers a special guidelines to the housewife, no, not to the family, to the housewife, how to organize Yom Ha'atzmaut. This is the dish that you will prepare. This is how you light the candles. By the way, it was not an easy task because food was not there. And you had to overcome the difficulties of not having meat and not having milk and not having this and that. So how you do that while you're still going to the market with stamps? You can't buy because the government supplies to what they have. So how can you do Passover with 2 eggs? How do you do Yom Ha'atzmaut with 2 eggs? This is the story. So the Orthodox rabbis understood through those instructions that something interesting is happening. The chief rabbi then of the Israeli army, called Shlomo Georn, later the Israeli chief rabbi, and he looked left and he looked right, and he saw, wow, this is very dangerous. Somebody is creating competition to Passover. Somebody is trying to overcome Passover. Something is trying to do major reform in the Jewish world. Somebody is creating. This is very dangerous. He ran to the few Knesset members from the Orthodox parties. They saw that. They were amazed. They were afraid. They ran to Ben-Gurion. They knocked on his door. In those days, you can knock on the door of the prime minister. Ben-Gurion used to live in Ben-Gurion, what is called today, those who visit Tel Aviv in Ben-Gurion Avenue. Ben-Gurion wrote about it later. His wife always opened the door. What do you want? We want to talk to Ben-Gurion. He is tired. No, we have to write. So Ben-Gurion saw them and they told him, look, this is what we found. If that is going to be spread as a supplement in a newspaper, and you're going to call to people to do Passover 1, number 2, to create some kind of, we are going out from your coalition. This is the story of today in Israel. Of course, immediately the prime minister says, oh, I will check that. I didn't mean that. I didn't know that it's happening. This Haggadah was never, went out from the army base. A few days after the second Yom Ha'atzmaut, this Haggadah in Yom Ha'atzmaut was burned. About 100,000 150,000 copies of those Haggadot were burnt in the army base. There are few of them that you can find today. It cost a lot of money because this is really like a huge a story. I'm holding, as I said, not the real one. This is just a Xerox. This tells you about the difficulties of how you create in the new nation called Israel something that combines the whole community. What do? Do you read Hallel? Do you read from the Torah? Do you do Haftarah? The Tzionut Hadatit, those who are, let's talk about for a second about the settlers, of course. This is the miracle that happened. We'll do Hallel, not Chatzi Hallel. We'll do a full Hallel. We'll do a Torah reading. We'll do Haftarah. We'll say the prayer for the state of Israel. But at the same time, you have the Haredim from Mea Shearim that will put black flags. They will go to school. They won't do anything that will give the ability to understand that it's a holiday for them. What about the secular community? How they are going to celebrate the holiday? Let's read for a second Tom Friedman, Josh. Tom Friedman, for those who does not know who he is the New York Times. This is your guy. For years, he was living in Israel. I got to know him while he was in Israel. A few years after the Lebanon War, he wrote a beautiful book, From Beirut to Jerusalem. And this is what he wrote in the book, From Beirut to Jerusalem, about the way that Israelis celebrate Yom HaAtzmaut. This is how he didn't understand the nature of the Israeli society, the large debate within the Israeli society of who we are. We are Orthodox Jews, we are Haredim, we are in between, we're Reform, conservative, we're religious, we're not religious, the state is religious, the state is not religious, how much from the Jewish world we'll take, how much we can take from the Jewish world, what is our connection to the diaspora, who we are. This is still, after 74 years, the question that the Israelis ask themselves. And Tom Friedman asked, and I think that he didn't understand how deep the Israeli society is into this debate of who we are. So, Josh, can you read Tom Friedman, please?
On that night, they tell you that you should go out and celebrate. Be happy. This is Independence Day. Nobody knows what to do. They go out to the streets and they bang each other in the heads with plastic hammers. This is a celebration without roots.
I think that I was offended by reading this. And I told him once that because our celebration is packed with roots. The moment that they light the candles in Har Herzl, in Mount Herzl, the moment that they will do Chidon HaTanach, the Bible competition that we have every year, the moment that I see and feel the spirit in the synagogue, in every synagogue, Reform, Conservative, Orthodox, the moment that we read the Megillat Ha'atzmaut, the moment that we are gathering in army base, and sometimes even in mangals, what you call in America barbecues. By the way, this is the difference between America and Israel. One of them, barbecue, and we call it mangal. I see that the Israelis take themselves quite seriously, more than Tom Friedman. But we have a problem. We have a problem of definition of who we are. We are part of the prophets coming back to the land. We are part of those who, for 2,000 years, kept the halacha. We're secular Jews, free from religion. We're doing a secular community, secular state. What is our connection to the diaspora? Huge debate, for example, in Israel in the last few years. One of the 12 candles that are lighted in Mount Herzl for the last 3 years is for a Jew from the diaspora. Why? Why not Israelis? You understand that raise a question in Israel. And I'm for the one from the diaspora. I think that you deserve more than one. But the question is the connection. And I feel a lot of pride with the way that we celebrate Yom HaAtzmaut. I believe that we are just in the beginning. I think where America, United States of America, was in her 74th birthday, you didn't know yet who you are. And we are still debating on ourselves about who we are, trying to create the new spirit of a nation that just grew up and just started the journey, and journey that united people from so many languages, so many cultures. We just had Friday at Beit Daniel, our yearly Shabbat between Yom HaZikaron, the memorial there for the Holocaust, and Yom HaAtzmaut. We call it Shabbat Kuma. We do just one event there during the service that can tell you how lucky we are and how challenge is the mission that we have. We light Shabbat candles, not just in Hebrew or in English, but we try to light candles in different languages. We had Friday about 20 different people in different languages, people that came to our community from so many different places. We had a young one that came from Ukraine just recently, Russian, Arabic. We had Ladino, we had French and English, just name it, about 20 different languages. We didn't do that day before yesterday, but usually I do that. I ask to people after they light the candle and say the blessing in their own language, mother tongue. Let's do that together. And it comes very, very funny and sound all together. This is the mix that build the Israeli society, that can be a challenge to put them to one unit that had the difficulties, the differences, but had one mission: to build a Jewish home for a nation that suffered 2,000 years without a home, without a place that can be called Moledet. And I know that most of you were born in the States, you will stay there, but we feel that we as a Jewish people deserve another home, or a home that will reflect the concept of a nation. So this is the story of Yom HaAtzmaut. We are still trying to find a way to celebrate this unique day that will symbolize for years the achievements, the journey that we did, and the change that happened, as Bialik says, in our nation. Joshua, I think I forgot to read number 6. Apart from the Agadah of Yom HaAtzmaut, maybe you can read that and give the feeling of what was the intention of Ben-Gurion. And I feel that part of the decision of Ben-Gurion to give up on Agadah and to give up on the concept of creating some kind of a major reform in the Jewish tradition lead us to the point that the Orthodox leaders understand that they can push and they can fight and they can make our life under the religious coercion that they are creating to us. So let's read about the guy from the Agadah. Remember him, the smart one.
The smart one, what does he say? What are the communities and laws that our state is built on? And you tell him the laws of the state. It is open to Jewish immigration and the ingathering of exiles, pursuing of the development of the land for all its citizens, based on the foundations of liberty, justice, and peace in light of the prophecies of the prophets of Israel. And the one who does not know how to ask you should open the door for him and tell him the story of the nation's heroes, the old comers and newcomers together.
Yeah, that was the concept, is still the concept that we are looking for. And this is Yom HaAtzmaut for me, from the loss of my father to the efforts, endless efforts to create something that will unite us as Jews in the state of Israel. So thank you very much for your attention. Rabbi Aaron, please, the bima is yours.
Thank you to Rabbi Azari for that. So much to think about now. I'm curious about that Haggadah. I would love to see some entries from the original. Such an interesting thing about creating ritual. And if somebody can explain to me along the way, I never understood exactly where this makeh patish, the hitting people with the plastic hammers, came from. But
we're still trying to understand what happened. Somebody in China had stock and he didn't know what to do with that, and that became somehow the story in Israel.
But I want to invite, I think now is the time, Josh, right? We have a couple of speakers from both of our communities, and really want to ask you to reflect a little bit on your experience of Yom HaZikaron and Yom HaAtzmaut, whether you're an Israeli, whether you're an American living in Israel or visiting Israel. We want to give people a chance to do that. I don't know that we set out the particular order. Josh, why don't you want to call on one of your people to go first, and then I'll call on, and then we'll have Marcy go, and then we'll have Cameron go. More and Marcy can go.
I know we wanted to open the floor first to David to share with us.
Great.
Yes, Mayor?
Okay. First of all, hello, everyone. It's really a pleasure to have everyone here. Started with an idea of Monica, and it became a reality. So also thank you, Monica, for this. Also for this. And it's really nice to expand our relations and like the family of Beit Daniel. So thank you everyone for being here. And yes, Mayor asked me to share, told me in advance that this was the program. So I will share with you a little bit of Yom HaZikaron. This is Memorial Day, that one of the writers or Bohemians, his name is Yonatan Geffen, the nephew of Moshe Dayan. He once called it the celebration of the schizophrenics, because it's there. Everybody is very sad one day, and then they have to be very happy the next day. And it takes, it's not an easy task. And this is something that they arranged in Israel. It puts us, this celebration, you have to be here once in order you go through it, and people do it, and from an outsider, it's really hard to understand, with the sirens going on in the evening, and then the next day, and then the next day or next evening is the celebration. I will share with you my personal story, but I would like to say that when I read this Haggadah of Ben Gurion, and thank you, Meir, you brought us so many scoops of the past, and also personal, I didn't know some things of your personal life, but now I understand how one becomes a rabbi. If Efi Netzer tells him, everybody goes to the left, everybody goes to the right, you must be a rabbi at the end. And this was the age of 10. So I will share with you some pictures about my brother, who was killed in the war of 1973. He was 19. And I host disabled participant screen sharing. So if I can do screen sharing, it will help me. Is it possible?
One moment.
Yeah, we'll do it. Can you do it, Josh? You need me to do it? Hold on. Here, watch this. Now he should be a co-host, which should make him able to share, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, try it now, David.
Okay, good. Yeah, I will do this. Okay, and Monica and Lester, you know the people and the pictures you also know. So this is some. Danny, my brother, he was born in New York, 1954, when my father did his PhD after the War of Independence. And so this is Danny when he in New York, a baby. These are my parents. My father made his PhD in economics at the age of 25 at Columbia University. They offered him to stay there, but they said that they have to go back to Israel because they need to build a state there. And so this is already in Jerusalem, and then he became a position in London. And this is Danny, 6 years old. This is London. and this is back in Tel Aviv. Early a kid that liked sports and liked to learn, took care of his little brothers and anything that had to do with sport, with this smile that everybody loved. And this is in high school, really liked cars, sports, girls, and also was interested in what he was going to do in future. And then in November 1972, he was drafted. He was in the armor, in the tanks. And when he was there at the Sinai Desert, he used to write home. He said, listen, we are very happy here shooting carton targets, but maybe one day it will be real. And there will be somebody on the other side who will also love cars and sports and will want to have plans about university and studying. And one mother will cry. And he wrote this when he was 19 or something like that. And he said that it's not that it's not that he became anti some kind of radical, but he thought that the old people, the old Zionists, should have done better. And actually, this is me in my bar mitzvah. This is September 1973, and my bar mitzvah was at the. I did my Aliyah Torah at the Reform Synagogue in Tel Aviv. We had Rabbi Moshe Zemer, and so actually this is the last time that Daniel was in synagogue. It was in the Reform Synagogue in Tel Aviv, which later became Beit Daniel. And so this is so actually it was the first day of the war that they were on the front line stopping the advance of the Egyptians when they crossed the Suez Canal. And years later, that was like 6 years ago, we did something in Danny's memory, and we entered a Torah. Actually, we wrote a Torah. First time the Torah book was written in Israel, especially for a Reform synagogue. And the reason why, and we did it in a way that people from the community could participate in the writing and also contribute words like they buy words, and the money goes to contribution. And so it had to be men and women. So we found Sofer Stan that was ready to have women holding his hand while he was writing. And so
probably he was the only one in Israel that was able to do that.
It was very difficult. You can ask me. We went to all over the place until we found one. And it's not easy. So, and it was very special for us because actually Noam is my youngest son. He was the first one to, he had bar mitzvah the next day. So he was the first one to read from this book. It was a big celebration at Beit Daniel. You can see here people dancing with the Torah, and we have drums and people walking in the street. And this was very symbolic for us, like to close the circle. That Noam was the first one to continue reading the Bible in this very same synagogue, and that's the story of how the connection to Beit Daniel, and the fact that we are here struggling with a lot of with these difficulties that the price that has been paid, and sometimes it is not always they had it very easy. When my father was fought in the war, in an independence war, everything was clear cut and black and white, and it was clear that they are fighting for a vision. And to go back and to hold this vision, sometimes it's more difficult today. And you have to be strong, keep on believing, because as we said in the beginning, "En li eretz acheret," there is no other land. So, and about this Torah, "Etz chaim hi lemachzikim ba vetomchei meushar." Yeah. So this was the sharing of my personal experience that also connected me back to Beit Daniel.
Just think about the difficulties and the challenge for families like David to spend the morning at the cemeteries. This is something that most of the Israelis will do, especially the family that lost loved one. And in the evening, as Tom Friedman says, they're going to the streets and dancing. And how can you do that? It's so complicated. Rabbi, it's your turn.
Thank you. I want to say first, Yitzchak Baruch, may his memory always be a blessing, your brother. I thank you for sharing that personally with us. And, it's interesting, and just quickly, there's a reading that we do in America all the time. We read in English, the Chaim Altman, right? The silver platter, right? You say it in Hebrew. I am the state on which, the silver platter on which the state was served to you, right? In other words, that so many people were lost in service of having a state of Israel, and always meaningful for me to hear, and always jarring for me, because I just think that we experience "quote unquote" Memorial Day in America very different than Memorial Day in Israel. It's a totally different experience. I'm actually, just because of timing, Marcy, going to let Cameron go first in case she has to do anything with her program that she's on. Cameron, I'm going to let you introduce yourself, tell them what you're doing in Israel, and tell a little bit about Yom Ha'atzmaut and Yom HaZikaron and what they mean to you being in Israel right now.
Thank you, Rabbi Shemron, and thank you to Monica for inviting me to speak and for organizing all of this. Hi, my name is Cameron Fields. I'm currently on Nativ College Leadership Gap Year program in Israel. It's a gap year through the Conservative Movement in Israel, where half the year we study in Jerusalem, and I did the track where I studied at Hebrew University, and currently I am living on Yamin Ord, which is youth village up north near Haifa, and I'm volunteering there half time in the kitchen, and the other half I'm volunteering on Magen David Adom, which is the ambulance service in Israel. So I actually, in 2017, I was in Israel for Yom Ha'atzmaut and Yom HaZikaron with my 8th grade trip to Israel. And we spent it with a high school in Omer, Israel. And we went to the Yom HaZikaron service, and we got to see the changeover to Yom HaAtzmaut. And I remember we went to the memorial service during the day, and that evening we joined them, and we went to this party, and the whole town was there, and they were singing and dancing, and it was just a really amazing experience. But to be honest, I don't think I understood the impact of Yom HaAtzmaut and Yom HaZikaron when I was in 8th grade, because I was only there for 2 weeks. But now, having been in Israel since the end of August, I think this holiday means much, much more to me, because I've always considered Israel my second home, but now I truly consider it more of a second home now, maybe one day even a first home. But I think that just also, since I do volunteer at Magen David Adom, I got to see Israeli society, and I got to be delve in it, and just seeing how important this holiday is to everybody is really something special. And also, I think one big difference about Yom HaAtzmaut, like we're talking about the Independence Day in Israel, is that the whole country gets really, really into it, to the point that every street, I think I can confidently say that almost every street in Israel has Israeli flags just hanging from either like light posts or really anywhere, and it's just really amazing. And even the hospital bays, they have Israeli flags hanging there when I pull in on the ambulance. So personally, I'm really excited to be in Jerusalem for Yom HaAtzmaut this year, to get to celebrate with my Nati friends and to be with all the rest of the Israelis. And I think it will be probably one of the most impactful Yom HaZikarons I've ever experienced, especially because Nativ organized that we're going to meet Michael Levine, the lone soldier that passed away. We're going to meet his mother and hear from her. So I think it'll be something really meaningful. And I'm looking forward to getting to experience Yom HaZikaron in Israel again.
Perfect. Thank you, Cameron, for your sharing. We're glad you're having an amazing time. We're not surprised you're having an amazing time, and we hope you continue to. Maybe you'll have a few minutes. You'll have a little break from the TV. You can go to Beit Daniel and say hello in person. That would be good. Make some connections there. Always good to have family and extended family and friends who are family in Israel. So that's great. Let's do now somebody also from another reflection from the Beit Daniel side, Josh. All right.
Yeah, Rachel.
I see Rachel is here.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I am Rabbi Druck, and I am the maternity leave replacement rabbi at one of the branches of Beit Daniel, Kihila Tiferet Shalom in Ramat Aviv. The voice that you hear in the background is my son. You know, I want to thank Meir for his introduction, both because it was very interesting and had a lot of information that I never heard before, but I think it also speaks to some of the tensions maybe that I personally feel now that I am living in Israel and commemorating Yom HaZikaron and celebrating Yom HaAtzmaut here. As you guys can hear, I'm originally from the US. I'm actually originally from New Jersey, Bergen County, so further north than you guys, but Jersey strong. And I do feel this sort of sense of being betwixt and between. I think, you know, when I was growing up, I went to Jewish day school, and Yom HaAtzmaut, first of all, everyone was kind of on the same plane, more or less. We were all American Jews who felt a strong connection to Israel. And so on that, you know, we were all kind of in the same place when we were celebrating, but it was also, there was celebrating Yom HaAtzmaut was making this statement. You know, again, I went to a religious school, and not only would we have special davening, we would say full Hallel, we would have a special Torah reading, but also there would be a live band that would play afterwards, and we would, you know, sing and dance and all of that. And that was a statement because it's during Sfirat HaOmer, and I went to a kind of school where live music during Sfirat HaOmer normally would not have been allowed. And so it was this statement of, this is a holiday, this is a joyful time, and we're going to sing and dance. And there was something very, very special about that. And now that I'm living here in Israel and celebrating the same holiday and also commemorating Yom HaZikaron, it's different. It's very different. On the one hand, there is something very special about being here, about stopping and standing for the siren, as opposed to watching videos of other people stopping and standing for the siren. You know, it has an impact. On the other hand, I do feel this question of, well, what am I supposed to do? You know, having the day off and having a barbecue is great, but there is this, it's not as meaningful as, you know, making the statement of, I'm having a live band, even though it's Sfirat HaOmer, because I believe in this so strongly, you know. So it is something that I feel, it's something that I question, how I want to make the day meaningful and how I navigate being both an insider. You know, I'm an Israeli citizen. I live my life here. I think, you know, that the existence of the state of Israel is a wonderful thing. And on the other hand, I am American. I don't I mean, luckily, but I don't know anyone who has been killed in a war in Israel. So it's a sad day, but for, my husband, who is a native born Israeli, feels it in a way that's very visceral, whereas I feel it as at a little bit of a remove. I have my own story of making Aliyah and what brought me here, but it's different from it's different from the narrative of having to hide on a boat and be smuggled in here. Like, that is not my Aliyah story at all, and it doesn't make it bad, but it does in some ways raise a lot of questions and make the whole idea of how do I want to do this holiday much ironically more complicated, which sometimes life in Israel can be a little bit complicated, and asking those questions and trying to figure it out. Now I realize I'm part of a long tradition since the founding of the state of trying to understand this holiday and what I want it to be and how I want it to be. And that there's something special about that also, of celebrating a holiday kind of with questions. So.
Thank you for that. And celebrating with questions on the heels of Passover, I guess that's appropriate too in its own way. Nice to meet you over the screen and begin to make these connections. Let's have Marcy talk a little bit, and then we'll go back to, I think there's one more from Beit Daniel after that.
Well, good morning or good afternoon, depending where part of the world you're in. It's nice to meet everybody, see people from the congregation, and also to meet everybody from Beit Daniel. I've heard about your synagogue from Monica, and hopefully next time I'm in Tel Aviv, I'd like to come and join you for Shabbat services, and I look forward to it. I'm going to talk about my experiences in Israel during Yom HaZikaron and Yom HaTzmaut. I was there in the late 70s, but I was on kibbutz, and I don't really remember clearly how the days were honored. So I'm going to talk about my most recent experience in 2018. My husband and I were in Israel to participate with SARL, which is where you volunteer on an army base in a civilian capacity. We've done that a number of times, but we actually went early. We went to Israel that year prior to the program because we wanted to be there for those special days in Israel. So actually we were in Tel Aviv, and it was just, and as the prior speaker, I think her name was Rachel, mentioned, it's one thing to watch people stand on the news or watch them on your computer on Yom HaZikaron when the sirens ring in the morning, but it's something to be there and actually experience it. I think we were walking to Jaffa, on the Tayelet, and we just kind of stood there for 2 minutes by the sea for 2 minutes. It's different than watching it from here. But I understand, thank you, David, for your explanation about your brother. He's actually the same age as me, and it's kind of hard to understand, but in Tel Aviv on Yom HaZikaron, it's such a live and active city. I mean, there's like nobody on the streets. It's very quiet. Everything's closed, and it's kind of a different day there. It was good to experience it being there. In the evening, we went to Rabin Square for the big celebration there, and we actually got there early. And on the screen, you could watch, I guess they were broadcasting the television, families telling their story about their loved ones, and then the ceremony from Har Herzl. So we watched it on the screen with all the other thousands of people there, and then stayed for the celebration. And I guess it was the 70th anniversary of Israel, so they had 70 years of music, and music by the decade. A lot of the songs I knew, the older songs, the newer songs, not so much, and then the fireworks go off in the background. It was just an amazing celebration. And the next morning we went to the Tayelet and watched the flyby of the aircraft, and also in the sea, we watched all the Navy ships coming through. It was just a wonderful celebration. It was, it's something you don't experience here in the States. I mean, unfortunately, on those 2 days, you just kind of read about it and the day goes by and you just kind of think about what being there and what it meant, but it's not the same. The only thing that comes close here in the New Jersey, New York region is the yearly Salute to Israel parade. It's just wonderful to be in New York with hundreds of thousands of others that are celebrating Israel. That's the only time you really get that feeling that you do when you're in Israel on Yom Ha'atzmaut. So.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Marcy, for capturing that and for naming. I think, and it's a longer conversation that as we, I think, develop our relationship, we will, continue talking about. But it is different, especially if you're in America and you have a connection to Israel and you feel a strong connection to Israel, and you're going to be one of the people that's going to watch the siren, right? Because that's even a question
right.
if anybody would even think about that. It's just different. It's not. I'm not sure. Rabbi Azari was talking about how you create a ritual. I'm not sure outside of Israel how you create a ritual. I've tried. I send people things. We talk about things. We have it, but I'm not sure if or how you can create a Yom HaZikaron, Yom HaAtzmaut ritual without the land. I'm not sure. I'm still trying to figure it out. And we try. For the Jewish leadership perspective, I think we try, but. It's just different. Who on the Beit Daniel? I think we have one more. Is that right, Josh?
Lee Perlman is here
Great.
with us. Lee.
Wonderful.
Hi, everybody. It's nice to speak to you. My name is Lee. I preceded David as the chair of the board of the Daniel Centers and president of the Beit Daniel Synagogue. I've lived in Israel for 40 years. I grew up in New York City. And I first want to take up Rabbi Schonbrun's challenge, not by proposing a concrete ritual or ceremony or even strategy, but to share with you how I experience Yom Ha'atzmaut as not just a celebration of Israel's statehood and achievements, but a celebration of Jewish peoplehood. For me, Yom Ha'atzmaut is a relevant holiday for all people who have chosen to tie their fates with the fate of the Jewish people, and by virtue of tying their fate to the Jewish people, have tied their fate to the people of Israel and also to the state of Israel. One can tie one's fate to the people of Israel and to the Jewish people from any place in the world. And this has been my experience, even though I've lived here most of my life and pretty much all of my adult life, including a very significant patch on a kibbutz outside of Jerusalem. But I truly believe, it's both a belief, but it's just more of I guess it reflects my worldview about what the significance of Israel is for me. Israel, amongst all of its various purposes in the world, is the ultimate expression of us being a people, not necessarily a uniform people, but a people that is trying both within Israel and outside of Israel to be a unified one. I'm not sure if that notion could be a conceptual point of departure for this challenge, which is real, Rabbi Schonbrun, and I know it's a struggle. So it's knowing Rabbi Azari's scholarship on the issue of Yom Ha'atzmaut, it's ironic the challenges historically and to this day that we in Israel have about how to make it meaningful and not just how to make it fun. And I'm going to focus only on Yom Ha'atzmaut. So we've all better understood from Rabbi Azari that it's not such a slam dunk here about how to make it meaningful. And my second comment has to do with that as well. Yom Ha'atzmaut, as much as it's a celebratory event, with all of the different ways of doing it, whether it's going out for group singing in the city square or in someone's backyard the evening of, I'm very, very proud of our modest and Hamish Yom Ha'atzmaut Day prayer, which amongst others also reflects on what is the meaning of trying to be a sovereign Jewish country and to live up to the ideals of our Israeli Declaration of Independence. What does it mean to consider all of the implications of the return of the people of Israel, of the Jewish people, to their land, including the moral responsibilities? What does it mean to be a state that's not just the state of the Jewish people, but a state of all of its citizens, where there's not just some nice good feel social cohesion, but a real commitment to shared citizenship with all of the 9+ million citizens, including over 2 million non-Jewish citizens, Arab citizens of Christian and Muslim background, and other hundreds of thousands of other non-Jewish citizens. For me, Yom Ha'atzmaut is also a time for reflection. Is that built into the current sort of normative culture and ways of celebrating? Not so much so, we might do a tech study about Megillat Atzmaut, and there are more and more events, I think, that are trying to also tap into Yom Ha'atzmaut as an opportunity for critical reflection. But I think that's something that also, like the first point I made about the Jewish people tying its fate to this place and to the people, it's also another possible hook for all of us to give Yom Ha'atzmaut even more meaning, and to make it, to have the meaning that it brings to each of us wherever we are, be expressed not just through the current customs and rituals. So it's lovely to be a part of this, and I join all my other Daniel Centers and Beit Daniel colleagues and friends by hoping to see you all very, very soon, visiting with us in Beit Daniel and in any of the Daniel Center communities. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for bringing up the issue of peoplehood. I think very much at the center, actually teaching something, finishing right now about peoplehood. So very much at the center of everything that we're talking about today. So thank you for that. Josh.
We'll I think I just want to be conscientious of people's time, and we're so thankful to be able to do this. So we'll move into the Tefillah Shalom Medina, the prayer for the peace of the state of Israel. I'll put those words on the screen. I think Meir, you'll lead us in reciting this blessing. Can you mute yourself, please?
Yeah. Maybe all the Israelis. I will start, and I'll endorse you to join me, Rachel and Lee and David. Each one of you will read a little bit of it. And we are so proud with this tefillah and the spirit that this tefillah reflect. That we did so much, but we need to do more. And we need to create such as justice in Israel, peace, prosperity for all the citizens. So we still have a challenge. So I will start, and guys, join me, David, Lee, Josh, Rachel. צור ישראל וגואלו, ברך נא את מדינת ישראל, ראשית צמיחת גאולתנו. הגן עליה ברוב חסדך ופרוס עליה סוכת שלומך. שלח אורך ועמיתך לראשיה, לשופטיה ולנבחריה, ותקנם בעצה טובה מלפניה, למען ילכו בדרך הצדק, החופש והיושר. הוא continue. דוד.
זק את ידי מגיני ארץ קודשנו, והנחילם ישועה וחיים, ונתת שלום בארץ, ושמחת עולם ליושביה. קוד נא לברכה את אחינו ואחיותינו בית ישראל, בכל ארצות פזוריהם. אתה בליבם אהבת ציון, ומי בהם מכל עמנו יהי אלוהיו עמו. והיה לירושלים עירך אשר נקרא שמך עליה.
רחל או לי? Who wants to continue?
I can. העצר מרוחך על כל יושבי ארצנו, הסר מקרבנו שנאה ואיבה, קנאה ורשעות, ותב ליבנו אהבה ואחווה, שלום ורעות. וקיים במהרה חזון נביאך, לא יישא גוי לגוי חרב, ולא ילמדו עוד מלחמה. ונאמר, אמן.
אמן.
And Rabbi, we'd said also a prayer for the United States of America as we're talking about independence. So
Yeah, let's take a card from Rabbi Azari's reading. It's a good idea not to just hear myself read. We'll ask the president to unmute himself, Andrew Robbins, president of our congregation. Why don't you start reading and read the first paragraph there.
Happy to do so. Our God and God of our ancestors, with mercy accept our prayer on behalf of our country and its government. Pour out your blessings upon this land, upon its inhabitants, upon its leaders, its judges, officers, and officials who faithfully devote themselves to the needs of the public. Help them understand the rules of justice you have decreed so that peace and security, happiness and freedom will never depart from our land.
Mindy, can I put you on the spot? Unmute yourself. Read the second paragraph. Please. Can you see it? Unmute. There you go.
Adonai, God whose spirit is in all creatures, let your spirit be awakened within all the inhabitants of our land. Uproot from our hearts hatred and malice, jealousy and strife. Plant love and companionship, peace and friendship among the many peoples and faiths who dwell in our nation. Grant us the knowledge to judge justly, the wisdom to act with compassion, and the understanding and courage to root out poverty from our land.
Thank you. Monica or Lester, last one, which ends with the same last line that the prayer for Israel ended with, by the way.
Go ahead. May it be your will that our lands be a blessing to all who dwell on earth, and may you cause all peoples to dwell in friendship and freedom. Speedily fulfill the vision of your prophets. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. For all of them, from the least of them to the greatest, shall know me. And let us all say, Amen.
Thank you all for volunteering on the spot. And really, I know we're going to head towards the conclusion. Josh, I'll let you take us towards the end. But I just want to, before we do that, I really thank everybody who spoke. Really thank again, Monica and Andy, the whole Israel committee, everybody who helped make this happen. Everybody on Beit Daniel's side. There was a number of meetings we had in the background to make this happen. And look, I think our primary goal, in addition to the content, was just doing exactly what we've been doing, which is making a kesher, making a connection between our communities, which I can sort of feel across the screen already is happening. So wonderful to be able to do that this morning and this afternoon, evening in Israel. Josh.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all so much. It was a pleasure to see you through the screen. And in the spirit of connections, we'll end with words that we all know well. The words of Hine Matzov U'Manaim Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. How pleasant it is to be together with you all here today, to learn about your experiences and to be enlightened and enriched before this Yom HaAtzmaut and Yom HaZikaron. And in the spirit of connections, we'll sing once in a traditional melody, once through in a newer melody, and with that, we'll end our time together today. So again, please, I invite you to sing along at home and join me. Hine matzov manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matzov manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matzov shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matzov shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matzov manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matzov manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matzov manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם